So West Ham get the season off to a perfect start at Newcastle, 2-1 down at halftime. It was one of those head in hands moments. You think, here we go. Am I in the mood for another 37 games of this after today? But an absolutely phenomenal second half saw us win 4-2, devastating inside 15 short second half minutes. All in all, it went from gloom, doom and gloom to actually, brilliant stuff. We look excellent going forward. We did look a little bit shaky at the back at times, but ultimately 3 points in the bag. Tony, what did you make of the game on the whole? Obviously brilliant to start with a win, but what did you make of it?
Well, the game on the whole, I thought, was probably one of the best games of the opening weekend for the Premier League. I mean, I did watch the Manchester United Leeds game. I quite enjoyed that game, but I thought our game at Newcastle was a better game in terms of chances for both teams. I don't think we see it too often nowadays, or not enough. We don't see teams having a go at each other. There's always a tactical battle, or one team's trying to attack, and the other team's just defend. And even when they get the ball, they don't try and score a goal. They give the ball away. And I didn't see that. I saw a very positive start from West Ham. And then you would probably say typical West Ham. We conceded, what was it, after 4 or 5 minutes when they shot a day. Like, you're thinking, like, it's the first time the ball's come across the goal. And Callum Wilson does what he does against West Ham. He scores a goal, and you think, oh, here we go, like 4 minutes into the season, whatever. But
same old stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But do you know what I like about this current team, and what I really admire about the current team? And I think a lot of it comes from the manager. I think that they don't panic, and we saw a lot of it last season. That when they do go behind, there's not the panic that you've seen in teams gone by. And I include myself in a few of those teams where you just panic and, oh no, here we go, and then you end up a second one goes in, then a third, and by the end of the day you've lost 4-0, and you're thinking, what the hell was that all about? I don't see that with this team. What I see is a very composed team with really, really good players. And when they do go a goal behind, they as I say, they don't panic. They just say, all right, we'll go down, let's kick off, let's get on with it. We know we can score a goal. And there's enough quality in that team, as was proven, to go and get the goals. And then, of course, as you said, at half time you're 2-1 down again, and again you're fearing the worst, and you're thinking, well, what's the second half going to be about? It was a tremendous second half from the boys, but generally the game itself, I honestly believe, was one of the games of the weekend. It was fantastically enjoyable. Always better if you win, obviously. If we'd have lost 4-2, perhaps I wouldn't have been saying that, but I do believe it was a really, really good game of football.
Jonesy, the defence, just if you had to, as I always do when we're planning for these shows, I look at the positives and list the positives and negatives from each game. The negatives, I just put Callum Wilson scored against us again. The defence looked shaky, and we conceded 2 headers. Was there sort of what was your take on it, particularly on those things?
Well, I think for Wilson's goal, it was just good movement from him. I think, Dawson probably should have been a little bit more aware than when he was coming into the near post. But the work from St Maximin on that right-hand side completely skinned Beck. Probably caught him off guard a little bit in the middle of the park and allowed Wilson to come in. But for me, the biggest worry was that second goal, because we had so many chances to clear it. And we half-heartedly cleared it about 8 times and just still couldn't get the ball out. And then, there are question marks over Craig Dawson again, whether he should have attacked the ball when... who was it that scored? When the header came in. Murphy, yeah. Murphy. When the header came in, it looked like he kind of let the ball just go past him rather than try and clear it or attack it. So that was a little bit of a worry, both of those goals. The second one, probably more reason to be a little bit concerned about the defensive shape. And maybe it's just first game of the season, nerves maybe, I don't know, but I don't think you can take much away from Wilson's movement for the first. I thought it was very, very good movement from him, and
and St Maximin did well, didn't he? Yeah.
And the thing is, though, we know Wilson's that type of striker. That's the sort of player he is. He'll get into those positions. So yeah, it looks like David Moyes is trying to address it though between now and the end of the month. So it'll be interesting to see who comes in, if any.
Tony, what is that like? That mentality? Because you hear a lot of cliches when you're watching football, and obviously me and Jonesy have played amateur level, but it's
I've seen
completely
you both
different.
play. Yeah, I know.
I know. But for what is that like when you're away from home? And you've got the fans against you, particularly, to go 2 goals down. What's the mentality like? Is it sort of really different? Does it feel really imposing if the away team goes, if the home team, when you're the away side, goes one up, or as happened at the weekend, you go behind twice? What is it like? Is it different to being at home, or is it the same? Going behind's the same anywhere when you're a professional footballer?
Well, obviously, last season I think it showed exactly what the fans mean to football clubs. I think the win percentage was it 75% at home or something like 70% or whatever at the weekend, and whereas last season it was like 30%, wasn't it? Whereas when you go, if you go a goal down or even 2 goals down and there's no fans there, it's not going to make too much of a difference, I don't think. But if you go a goal down or 2 goals down, if you're playing at St James's or Anfield or Old Trafford or any of the big clubs you want to name, of course it makes a big difference, because you then fans right behind their team, the noise level goes up. Everyone gets excited. Oh, here we go. Newcastle are going to win 3-0 or whatever, 4-0, whatever they're thinking. And it does become difficult as players. But what we did do, and as I've already touched on it, we very quickly got that equalising goal, and that just quietened things down a little bit. I agree with what Jonesy was saying there about the defensive side of things. I think you can always learn, and I think they would have watched the video, I'm pretty certain, on the Monday, and looked at the amount of times they could have possibly cleared the ball. And I think there is sometimes an argument for hoofing the ball into the crowd or whatever, rather than just getting the ball back up to the halfway line and it comes back again. Sometimes listen, I'm a football man. I'm not saying you do it deliberately, but every now and again, it doesn't matter if the ball gets hoofed into the stand. You can then reorganise. You can then get your shape, and you can all get in position again. But we never seemed to get rid of the ball, did we? We just, half-hearted clearances, sloppy clearances. Never really dealt with it, and I think that's perhaps something that Moisey and the boys can look at, and just say, don't be frightened to do that. We'll go on about how great a defender Tony Adams was and Martin Keown weren't. When I played against them, if they had to kick the ball at the top of the chicken run, they did it. It wasn't all about being silky skills and trying to play out from the back. So sometimes I think you do that, and when they did do that, the Arsenal boys, they reorganised and got in their back four or their back five. They got into shape. And I think maybe that's just something we could look at from a defensive point of view. But we are really, really nitpicking here, boys, aren't we? Because we won 4-2, and we got. I know we're going to talk about everything great going forward, but just from a little bit from that defensive point of view, I think that's just something that can maybe look at going forward.
You mentioned going forward, Tony. See, one of the big highlights was Benrahma. So there's been big talk this summer about, will Jesse Lingard come back? Won't he come back? If he doesn't, who can replace him? Do we need to buy someone? But it looks like Benrahma's kind of showed that he can step into that role and be as effective. I know we're only one game in, but he showed it in pre-season as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, let's be honest. If we can get Jesse Lingard back, I think we would all take that, particularly in his early games that he played for us last season. He was absolutely sensational, wasn't he? He played for England as well, wasn't he, since he got back on loan with us. So, you're talking about an international player. That's how good a player he is. So let's make no bones about it. If we can get Jesse Lingard back, let's get him back, because he was a big part of the squad as well. All the lads loved him. He weren't one of these flash Harrys who come down and don't want to run around and don't want to be a part of things. He got involved with all what was going on, and he put the performances and the effort on the field, which is what not just the players want to see, but the fans want to see. Having said all that, at the moment, we've got to deal with what we got. We haven't got Lingard in the squad, but we've got Benrahma. And, I said when we bought this guy, I said, we are signing an exceptional talent. I saw enough of him. I saw quite a lot of the Brentford games, and I saw enough of him playing for Brentford, knowing that he could potentially be our new Dimitri Payet. That was what I said at the time. I've seen nothing to change my mind, and I think what he did need, he just needed to probably have a pre-season and be a part of the lads and just be firmly established in the squad, because I think sometimes we all forget, and I'm probably guilty of it now as well nowadays, just how difficult sometimes it can be for a player moving from another club, and he was going up a division as well. So he had to deal with that, from the I know Brentford are in the Premier League this year, but the Championship to Premier League, you had to deal with that. You're only moving across London. I understand that, but you're still perhaps moving house or, changing school for your kids or what, keeping the missus at. All them things come into it, and, he arrived I think it was in the January window, wasn't it? Which is never easy. So, we saw glimpses of him last season, but I think in pre-season, his goal against Brentford in pre-season was a great goal, wasn't it? And, he got on the score sheet as well on Sunday. And I think we're now starting to see that player. And if he's got the confidence and the belief that the manager's going to play him and he's going to be in the team every week, I think we've got a real sensational player on our hands. I really do.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning before, Tony, about the certainly that Payet line. Another man who was brilliant on the weekend. He's looked razor sharp in pre-season, and again he's carried his form on. I thought he looked brilliant. Was Michail Antonio, equalled, of course, Paolo Di Canio's record of Premier League goals for West Ham at Newcastle. He got his 47th, and you'd lay your house on him. He's obviously going to beat that this season. He joked after the game that it's not bad for a right back. And I think that West Ham, I'm one of them. Lots of West Ham fans have been screaming certainly since Sebastian Haller left, we need to sign a striker. I think from that point of view, it's always hard because it comes across as if we're not happy with Michail, but I think he's phenomenal. But it's an observable fact with no malice attached to it at all, and it's probably not his fault that he is quite injury prone. But just before we sort of move on to that and transfers, what did you make of Michail at the weekend, and how do you what's your view on him generally?
Oh, listen, he's a fantastic player, isn't he? And I remember when he first arrived at the club, and he's probably not too many positions that he's not played for the club. He's played right and left and midfield and up front and so many different positions. He's like your Roy the Rovers, isn't he? Are you too young to remember Roy?
No, I'm all right. Yeah.
Oh, Roy the Rovers, right? Yeah. Well, basically, he was just like he could do anything and everything, and I bet Mickey was one of those lads at school who could just play in all the positions. And if you said to him, "Oh, you're going in goal," he'd go in goal and probably do well in goal, type of thing. He's been absolutely fantastic at the club. I love watching him play, and one of the reasons I love watching him play is because he's so unpredictable. And I think there are genuinely times where he doesn't know what he's going to do, let alone us fans. We've got no chance of working out, and probably some of the players don't know what he's going to do. But I think if anything summed up his capabilities, it was that goal he got, wasn't it? The lung busting run, and that you see players run 70 yards sometimes, and by the time they get there, they're knackered and they can't do anything, or they snatch their shot, or it goes miles over the bar. But it was just, he was so composed when he got to the ball after a 70-yard run, and he stroked it into the corner. It was an absolute with pace, and it was a fantastic finish. But I just think his general game, he's learning the position now, or he has learnt the position over the last couple of years. He's big and strong. He holds up. You're not going to get the ball off him because he's so strong. He's quick as anything, isn't he? And he's getting. I think what he brought to his game last year was the tap-ins. And it's all right getting that goal that he got, the fourth goal, sensational goal. But you've got to get your tap-ins. If you start getting the tap-ins, the sort of goal rubbish goals that I used to get from 2 yards and 3 yards and headers and things. If you start getting them, you get 10 of them a season, and then you add in the 10 goals that he's going to get because of his natural quality. You've got a 20 league goal striker on your hands, which is exactly what we need at the football club. Having said all that, I really hope that we just wrap him up in cotton wool, and whatever it takes to get him through. Bear in mind, we are going to have lots and lots of games this year. We have to protect the guy. He's a fantastic player for us. At the moment, we don't have any other centre forwards at the football club, which is absolute madness in my opinion. But obviously there's probably reasons for that. But we need to wrap him up in cotton wool. We've got to keep him fit and make sure that he's fit for all the big games. Now, whether that will be Premier League, European games or whatever, he might not play in the League Cup, FA Cup. Who cares? Just keep him fit for the big games. That's the main thing we've got to do.
Another one we've got to worry about, that's if he stays after the next couple of weeks, is Declan Rice. Because there are still links with him sort of moving to Chelsea, but does look like he's going to stay. First half against Newcastle, it wasn't the worst performance from Dec, but maybe a little bit slow. Probably understandable given he's only been back in training for a couple of weeks after the Euros. But that second half,
He
was
weren't bad, was he, Jonesy?
just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like to win the ball for the equaliser in midfield, take it off St Maximan. And it was the first time we'd managed to get the ball off him, and he just walked up there, and took it off his toes. And now that's the Declan Rice that we're led to believe Chelsea want to pay £100 million for. So, what are your thoughts on that, Tony? Do you think that? Firstly, do you think we can keep hold of him beyond this summer, or even beyond January? You can have him for the whole season. And two, what do you think that? Do you think we need to bring in some cover, or do you think he's good enough to be able to sort of stick to that position for the entire season without getting injured? That is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think with Dec, I probably would have spoke to you boys about it last season. I'd said publicly, we've got to win a cup or get into Europe. That was always the two reasons to keep Dec at the football club. We got into the Europa League. We did flirt with the Champions League last year, which was a fantastic achievement in itself. We're in the Europa League. I honestly believe that the club will have a real go at the Europa League, and quite rightfully so, because the fans want to go on a European tour. I certainly want to go on a European tour. I don't know about you boys. I can't wait for the draw. I think was it 13? No, it was we're now 17. 10 days time. Yeah. So I can't wait for the draw. And in terms of Dec, we need to give him what he wants, and what he wants to be a successful football club, a club that's winning trophies, and a club that's regularly playing in Europe. Now, that is a big ask for West Ham United Football Club, and the reasons are simple for that. We haven't won a trophy for 41 years. That's a fact. We can't get away from that. We've sporadically played in Europe, in the Toto Cups and a couple of games about 3 or 4 years ago or whatever. We haven't played in Europe too much. So that's the difficulty, the size of the task, if you like, to keep Dec, because, he's a fantastic player. In my opinion, it's only my opinion, I think he was our best player for England in the Euros final. I don't know what you guys feel.
Definitely, yeah.
He was our best player, and they took him off, which is an absolutely staggeringly crazy decision in itself. I never quite understood what.
Did he get a knock, though? Did he get a knock? I don't know if that was.
Well, he got a knock on Sunday in the second half, didn't he? He still was the best player.
True.
You look at him and you think he's coming off, and then he went on a run, didn't he? He ran for about 60 yards after nearly coming off. So, perhaps that's just the way Dec is. And sometimes you look at him and you think he looks absolutely shattered, and then he will go on another run. So I think that's what type of player he is. But that's how good the lad is. To be the best player for England in a Euros final, it says it all. But you can't blame him for wanting to be successful. He's 20? I think he's 23. He's only a young boy, isn't he? And
22, yeah. 22,
yeah. He wants to win. Of course, you want it. And you get in them England squad, and they're all talking about winning the Champions League. All the Chelsea boys, his best mate's Mason Mount. He's telling him how Chelsea won the Champions League. As much as we get annoyed with that, it's a fact. And you hear all that stuff, and they're playing Champions League, and they're winning FA Cups and Premier Leagues and all that sort of thing. And you do want to do that as a player. Dec wants to stay at the football club. I'm quite certain that Dec wants to stay at our football club. But somehow or other, we've got to give him what he wants. And as I say, I really feel for David Moyes and the people that are running the club, because you to do that, you've got to spend millions and millions of pounds to bring in other players that are of the quality of Declan Rice, and that's not feasible at the moment. We know that. So it's going to be really difficult to keep him. We've got the same as Mickey. We've got to keep the two of them fit. They're our two most influential players, aren't they? Antonio and Rice. Got to keep them both fit. And, I don't think we should look too far into the future with that. I think we should enjoy him while he's at the football club. And if he leaves at the end of the season, providing he don't go to Spurs, which I'm pretty certain he won't, then I think, he'll probably or possibly go with the blessing of most of the West Ham fans. That's probably a fair comment.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Tony. We'll get on to the transfers and stuff and what we need to get Declan in a little bit later. Just a couple of last little ones on the Newcastle game while we're in the reaction section still. James, I'll throw to you both, but just a brief one. Pablo Fornal's a penalty one. James Jones, yes or no?
No penalty.
No penalty.
It wasn't a penalty. No? Watching it in real time, I was like, "Yeah, he's got a point to the spot," and luckily he did. But then seeing it in slow motion, I was wondering what VAR were doing. It's like he's clearly got touch of the ball, and 4 hours has made a little bit of it. Last year, that wouldn't have been given. Absolutely not.
What do you mean? Because I thought the referee's got loads better so far, or just obviously from one weekend we're going on, but the officiating's been brilliant.
Well, they've tweaked the rule, haven't they? So they're giving the benefit of the doubt to the attacker in offside calls and whether there's a certain level of contact in penalty calls. And there was contact on Fornals, definitely, but the way I saw it, he got the ball first and it was 50-50 and he's beaten Fornals to it. But thankfully it went our way because we're not used to those going our way, particularly twice in a game, by the way. Like two in the same game. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, I know. Tony, would you? I guess you would be if you're a Newcastle fan after that. And from the feedback of the couple I've spoke to since, that was their main gripe about the game. Not that West Ham didn't attack well, and they just said, yeah, not a penalty. You'd have been spitting feathers, I suppose, if that had been given against us.
Yeah, and I think certainly would have been moaning if you was the Newcastle team that conceded the penalty. You'd been having a much more of a go at the referee than what they seem to. Because sometimes the player reaction tells you everything. If there's not much of a moan up from the opposition, then you know that it normally is a penalty. When I first saw it, I thought, I shouted penalty. Obviously, we all did. We're all West Ham fans.
Yeah.
But when you saw the replays, you're then looking at the replays, thinking, I think he's got a bit of the ball there. And I agree with what Jonesy said about the standard of the referee. They've had these instructions. We watched the Euros. There was a lot more physical contact allowed, and that was the case for the whole of the Premier League weekend. And thank God as well, because it's gone so far the other way where people are falling over or finger on them and they fall over and all that. That's got to go. We've got to go back to a little bit more of the physical game that we all want to see with tackles going in. So with that in mind, you feel like they would have looked at that and gone, do you know what? I think he might have got a bit of the ball. We called the referee over. I can't remember who the ref was, by the way, but called him over.
Martin Atkinson, I think.
Martin Atkinson, yeah. And, and get him to have a little look at it. And, if he'd have done that, then he might have gone, do you know what? I think he got a bit of the ball. But they obviously didn't think that. Whoever the VAR ref was, I think for once he sided with West Ham, and we'd have been hugely if we was talking about that now, given against us, we would have been saying all day long it was never a penalty. And I think you got to accept that, but it's interpretation, isn't it? I think different referees see things differently, but for me, as much as I like to say I think it was, I agree with James. I don't think it was.
Yeah, definitely a soft one. I think that's why it was nice to win 4-2 in the end, because I know obviously different dynamics of the game. Newcastle might not have opened up, etc., but it was nice that there was more to the game than just that. While we're on decisions then, Jonesy, we've got a couple more quick ones before we're done with the Newcastle reaction section. This links in quite nicely actually while we're on VAR and decisions. Aaron Cresswell, I thought, was absolutely brilliant, and I honestly, I was one of those who thought that after that big injury he had, that his West Ham career was done and he was just going to fizzle out and be some sort of, maybe go to someone like Palace or end up in the Championship. But he's had an absolute rebirth, hasn't he? Last season he was brilliant. He looks like he's continuing that form this season. He's our new set piece master. And he pings in our that opening goal of the season, which you thought wasn't going to be, didn't you?
He's picked up where he's left off last year. I thought last year he was one of our best players. Kind of went under the radar a little bit because of the likes of Souček and Antonio
Lingard and all that. Yeah,
Lingard, Dawson even as well. So he went under the radar last year a little bit. Didn't really get the plaudits that perhaps he deserved. But last year was one of his best seasons at the club. I think he's been at the club for about 7 years. I think last year, and I think he recently admitted that at the end of season awards as well, that in terms of output and performances, assists. I think the only thing he didn't do last year was score. 11, 12 assists.
No free kicks or anything,
Yeah, so he's taken that form into this season, got his goal. Thankfully, Jared Bowen had the intelligence to leave it until it went over the line. Whether he meant to or not, I don't know. I think he was trying to nick it off him, I think. But yeah, no, thankfully, it did. Again, another VAR decision that went our way, that obviously the lino flagged it. And then there was a big hoo-ha.
It did look it though,
got the last touch. Yeah, it did. It did look.
Yeah. Just watching it, sitting going,
But yeah, I think there's a player in that team that I like. That I'm happier for. It's Cresswell to get off the mark so early in the season, because, as I said, the last season he was superb. It looks like he's going to have a similar season this year if he can stay injury free. And yeah, he's been a wonderful servant for the football club since he signed 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, it is nice to see him having a bit of a resurgence. He's sort of one of the senior leaders in that squad as well now, isn't he? Which is a sort of new look for him. But I was absolutely on the edge of my seat, sort of willing to drive Jared Bowen to Liverpool myself if it had shown up that he'd put that in for no reason. I thought,
Will, do you know what is so hard when in that situation? Because as a goal scorer, Jared, you're desperate. It's the first game of the season. You want to get on the goal sheet. You don't really think about whether you're onside or offside. Listen, if you know you're blatantly offside, obviously you're not going to touch it. But if it's touch and go, you think, no, I've got to make sure it goes in the back of the net. But luckily, he got to it a bit late, didn't he? Because I think he probably would have been given offside. I mean, the only key question was whether anyone touched it before it went over the line. And I think once you looked at the different replays and the angles, you could see quite clearly that no one touched it. And it was Cresswell's goal. And going back to Aaron, he has been fantastic. He's a really nice lad. He's worked really hard at his game. And you know what? As good as he is at left back, he's as good at left centre half as well if you play a three.
Yeah.
So he really gives the manager like the options for the back three as well. And, you know, I reckon David Moyes, if you could speak to him about Aaron, I think he'd be absolutely delighted with him.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you would be. Obviously, you know, we've got a soft spot on this podcast for Arthur Masuaku as well. Completely different player, of course, and I think that's perhaps more for his personality and his tricks rather than his 100% reliability. But yeah, I think Cresswell, even just the it seems like such a little thing. But just the set pieces, you know, perhaps he's had better players at dead balls in the team before, so he hasn't had the opportunity, Aaron. But it's one thing, especially under David Moyes, it's such a big part of who West Ham are these days. We were so dangerous from set pieces last season. Hopefully going to be the same again this year with Dawson, Ogbonna and Souček, some big lads to get on the end of these balls. And just Cresswell, it looks like he's worked at that. And I know it's such a football cliche, isn't it? If people want to big up a player, they talk about how, they stay after training for half an hour every day. But when you're playing for someone like David Moyes, it looks like Cresswell has worked on it because he's reliable, and it seems like he's consistently good. His balls in from wherever they are, corners, free kicks, or crosses from open play. He's sort of hitting those 90% consistency ratings of every time he whips a ball in with his left. It looks dangerous, doesn't it?
Well, it does, yeah. And, you know, the thing with free kicks and corners, you know, if you've got assets in the team, in other words, if you've got the likes of Ogbonna and Souček and Craig Dawson, you know, you can add Deck into that as well, Michail Antonio. You've got, you know, 4 or 5 lads there who are all going to be good at heading the ball. You know, if you've got a strength in your team, I think we saw Everton at the weekend put in, I don't know how many crosses it was, because they got Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison who could head the ball. And it's just common sense, really. So if you've got that asset, it makes sense to get someone who's on the free kicks who can put a really good ball into the box. And, you know, the thing with free kicks and corners, when, you know, everyone looks at them and says, oh, yeah, it's easy to do that. I mean, listen, you guys have played that, as you say, amateur football. You know how difficult it is just to get the ball at the right trajectory is the right word. I can't say it, but you know what I'm trying to say. And, you know, to whiz the ball in with pace and, you know, to put it where you want. You know, and it takes practice. And I think sometimes I don't think everyone appreciates just how much people practice. You know, people always used to go on about David Beckham, how good he was with his free kicks and corners and that. It was practice. You know, he was the one who used to stay after training for an hour and a half practicing his free kicks and corners. And then when he scored that goal against Greece that took us to the World Cup, oh, yeah, of course, anyone could have done it. No, they couldn't. It was because
no chance. Yeah.
And it's the same with Aaron. And I'm not comparing Aaron Cresswell to David Beckham before anyone says that. But what I'm saying is if you've got the responsibility of taking free kicks and corners, you know, you have to practice them. You can't just, you know, not bother and during a game expect to put it where you want. You know, some of his deliveries are absolutely fantastic. And he's also earned the right as well. If there is a free kick from 20, 25 yards out as well, you know, he's one of the players. We've got others who can take free kicks, but he's one of the main players as well, depending on what side of the pitch he's on. So, you know, his all-round game has really, really improved. And, you know, I'm really, really pleased with him, as I said earlier.
Absolutely. Aaron Cresswell and the little magician and Aaron Cresswell and his magic hat, as the fans like to sing. Yeah, great to see him back. Well, that's pretty much it for our reaction on that Newcastle game. Just worth noting as well, I know all the fans that were there have absolutely loved it, but watching it on TV, you could hear the 3,000 away fans all game long, just for a minute one. Even when we were behind both times, they didn't stop singing. And in a ground like Newcastle's, it's easy to be drowned out because there can be a good atmosphere there. But it was brilliant stuff for them. Great that they got to see a win. It's been a very, very long time since there's been a full up away end at any Premier League game. So kudos to them for the long journey. And thank God they were rewarded with a perfect win, a perfect 3 points on the first game of the season. A great start to West Ham, and worth noting, of course, that while there might be a few of us, me included, who are a little bit concerned, to say the least, about our transfer activity this summer, the players that we've got that go out on the pitch so far are putting absolutely everything in and performing and producing some of the best football of their career, and we are lucky to have them. So 3 points down, hopefully plenty more like that to go. Stay with us. That